Hello. Today I'm going to talk about Canada's Startup Visa Program for business applicants. So, what is the Startup Visa Program? First, an overview. The Startup Visa Program is a business immigration program run by the federal government of Canada. The program looks to find businesses that are innovative, first and foremost, that can create jobs for Canadians and can compete on a global scale in Canada. The crux of the program is to have the support of a Canadian designated organization who believes in your business and wants to invest financially or incubate your business to operate it in Canada. We'll talk more about designated organizations in a little bit. So, what is innovative? IRCC, which is the Immigration Department of Canada, emphasizes that for the Startup Visa Program, businesses should be innovative. You might think innovative refers to IT or tech or computer science, but this isn't necessarily the case. It could be introducing a new product or service to an existing industry, or modifying or adding a new technology to some existing product or service. As mentioned, it doesn't need to be related to tech or IT. If you have business experience as an owner or manager, you should use that experience and convert it to an innovative idea to use in Canada. This could be a technology that you already implement in your home country, but that's not available yet in Canada. So as an example, if you operate a restaurant in your home country, you could introduce a method for reducing food waste. Or if you operate a construction company, you could be using a new building material that's not prevalent in Canada yet. There are 3 designated organization types in Canada. The first is venture capital VC funds. The second is angel investor groups. And the third is business incubators. At least one of these groups will have to support your business idea and give you a letter of support to include with your permanent residence application. Currently, there are 90 different organizations in Canada, so it's best to look around and try to find the best organization that matches to your business idea. It's important to note that each designated organization may have requirements that are separate from the Immigration Department's requirements for your application. For example, some organizations may require your business to be involved in green energy. Now let's take a look at what each type of designated organization requires for your application to immigrate to Canada. For venture capital funds, this group must agree to invest at least $200,000 Canadian into your business venture. There are currently 29 available organizations for that type. The second type, angel investor groups, must agree to invest at least $75,000 into your business. The third type is a business incubator. This type of organization must accept your business idea into their incubator program and help develop the idea with you before you start operating in Canada. So what else is required for the immigration application through Startup Visa? The first is to hold at least 51% of ownership with active and ongoing management of your company in Canada upon approval of getting permanent resident status. So this means, even though the Startup Visa program does allow you to land directly as a permanent resident in Canada, you must have genuine intentions to operate this business in Canada. Next, as mentioned, you need a letter of support from a designated organization. You must also have the required minimum settlement funds. The amount of funds required will depend on your family size. For example, if you are bringing a spouse or common law partner, or you have dependent children, this will increase depending on the number of people. Lastly, you must also meet a minimum requirement in English or French. Currently, in English, there are 3 tests you can take to test your level of English. This is the IELTS General Test, the PTE Core Test, which is new, and the Canadian CELPIP test. You need at least CLB 5 in each language band to be eligible for the Startup Visa program. For example, in IELTS General, CLB 5 is equal to 4.0 in reading and 5.0 in writing, listening, and speaking. So what are the fees involved with the Startup Visa program? First, there are 2 types of fees. You'll notice in this chart that there's permanent residence fees and also temporary residence fees. As part of the Startup Visa application, you are allowed to apply for a temporary work permit to come to Canada and start operating your business before your permanent residence application is approved. All of these fees are in Canadian dollars. So you can see that for permanent residents, the principal applicant, that's the main applicant, the person who will operate the business in Canada, they must pay $2,140 for the processing of their PR application. If they also want to come to Canada as a work permit holder first, they would have to pay an additional $155 for the work permit application. Note that these prices are accurate at the end of January of 2024. So let's look at some example costs. For a family of 4, that is the main applicant, their spouse, and 2 dependent children, the total costs would be $880 for temporary residence and just over $4,000 for permanent residence. This would include permanent residence applications for the whole family, work permits for the main applicant and their spouse, and study permits for both dependent children. Note that other costs to consider are police certificates for adults, medical exams for the entire family, regardless of their age, and the cost to translate and notarize any documents required for the applications. Note also that these fees are separate from the required settlement fees mentioned earlier. How about other costs associated with immigrating to Canada? There's 2 parts to look at here. The first is business startup costs. This is the practical costs to run your business in Canada. This can include things like incubator fees with the designated organization if you use an incubator, commercial lease and renovations for your business storefront, salaries of any employees in Canada, business licenses and permits, utilities, phone bills, things like that. For personal costs, you would look at the lease of a home or purchase of a home, and private school or university for your children. But note, if you are a work permit holder or a permanent resident in Canada, you can get free education for your children at public schools at the secondary and primary levels. Children studying in post-secondary school will have to pay domestic fees, and for private schools, those also have additional fees. Another benefit to having status in Canada is cheap or free provincial healthcare. The exact cost will depend on which province you move to. Now let's take a look at the process and timeline in general for the startup visa. At first, we would have an assessment with our organization to go over your background and your business idea. Next, based on your background and idea, we would try to match you with a designated organization in Canada. If a business incubator is used, you will have to enter their business incubator training program, which could range from a few weeks to a few months to up to a year. After the organization issues the letter of support, your work permit and permanent residence applications can be prepared and submitted at the same time. Work permit processing time will depend on the country you apply from. So, depending on your country of residence, this could take a few weeks up to several months. As for permanent residence processing, this is currently estimated to take approximately 37 months. While this is a long time, the goal is to have you come to Canada earlier on your work permit to begin operating your business while permanent residency is processing. So what kind of documents do you need for your application? Typically, for permanent residence, you will need identity and background documents and also documents to support your business idea, as well as your work experience. These include things like passports, birth certificates, national ID card if you have one, visa photo, police certificates, medical exam, marriage certificates, or common law documents, as well as documents to support your eligibility for the startup visa program, such as language test results, business plan, resume, and proof of work experience. As mentioned, you can apply for a work permit to come to Canada sooner while your PR process is ongoing. Although this work permit is optional, it is recommended so that you can start operating your business as soon as possible. At present, this work permit is for 1 year and is employer specific, in other words, closed and specific to your startup venture. If you have a spouse accompanying you, your spouse can get an open work permit. And your children can be eligible to get their own study permits to go to public school where you live in Canada. After you've landed in Canada as a permanent resident, you've received your signed confirmation of permanent residence document, and soon you will get your PR card. As a permanent resident in Canada, you are obliged to stay inside Canada physically for 730 days in any rolling 5-year period. So it's possible to stay outside of Canada for up to 3 years within any 5-year rolling period and still keep your PR status. But if you exceed this limit, you may lose your PR status the next time you come back to Canada. So it's important to maintain your residency in Canada. Lastly, I want to give the benefits of the startup visa program compared to, say, other programs in Canada. The main benefits are that the program is very flexible to accommodate a variety of different applicants. There is no education, no age, or work experience requirement to be eligible for the program. In other words, it's open to anyone of any age with any background in work experience and education. As a business program in Canada, it is also one of the fastest and most direct ways to get permanent residence in Canada as a business program, compared to, say, a provincial nominee program. Related to that, it's also one of the few immigration programs in Canada that lets you land directly as a permanent resident from outside Canada. So with that said, I hope you might consider the Startup Visa program, and you can contact us if you think it's right for you. Thank you for your time, and please feel free to contact us if you want more information about the Startup Visa program in Canada or any other program.